The idea behind the show is simply asking guests what they would tell a stranger on a plane if they were sitting next to them and the stranger asked them for advice.
The scenery is passing very fast, but the seer is constant. The one who's seeing is the same.
Let me appreciate you for asking a question that I haven't been asked after 2,500 or so interviews over the years.
Is you have to drop the ego, which is everyone's greatest obstacle.
In 2008, Grant and I had been married for 4 years. I was pregnant with my first child. The economy was collapsing, and we were on the verge of losing everything financially.
So it's so exciting to be back with another edition of this new show that we have called The Enlightened Passenger. Super excited to have a guest that I brought on in the past, but not for this show. So Greg, Reid, I'm super excited to have you here today. And Greg, because of the show, we don't have the luxury of long form where I can dive into background. We put that at the beginning of the show, so I can dive right in and ask you what I consider maybe a big question. But how do you define this idea of the word legacy?
Well, I'm going to give you a controversial answer, I'm sure, because I don't believe in legacy. I think it's a bunch of crap. So that's just my personal belief. And if you don't believe me, then go to Egypt and ask who built those pyramids. If you go back and look at history and you say, well, in 1792, there was a little town in Idaho, and there was one person who was the mayor, the doctor, the teacher. No one remembers that person. Go to the graveyards and the cemeteries. Anyone from 1980, listen to this, 1980, and before that, there's very rarely any flowers on any of those tombstones. So the fact of the matter is our memories are very short. And I even tested this. I went to one of my latest events and I asked everyone, said, hey, do me a favor, everyone stand up. And I go, if you can tell me your father's first name, stay standing. And everyone was there. And I said, if you can name your grandfather's first name. And some of them sat down and said, well, who can name your great grandfather's first name? And almost half the people. And I go, if you can tell me your great great grandfather's first name, and no one could stand standing. And I went, well, look at that. That's your own genes, blood, lineage, and you don't even remember that. Then what is true legacy after all?
Wow, it's so powerful and at the same time embarrassing because I can't tell you my great. I can tell you my great, but not my great grandfathers.
And you think about it, yeah. And if we believe that we are genes and blood passed down from lineage, legacy, then there you go. So if we can't even tell our own legacy, then what kind of pompous arrogance do we have for these so-called modern gurus going around telling everyone to leave their legacy because there's no such thing? History is only written by the winners. Remember that. History is written by the winners. So only even the stories you have of war or the past or accomplishments were only written by the people who succeeded. You don't get the other side of it. So at the end of the day, you got to be very careful. It's interesting. Just recently, as you know, I was very fortunate. I got a star on the Walk of Fame in Las Vegas, 6 from Elvis Presley. It was really cool. But people always, think that it was kind of a legacy play. Only for one reason, for my son, because I know, again, he's only 10, I'm 60. He's never going to go to my tombstone. He's never going to bring his grandkids, right? But every time he goes to Vegas for the rest of his life with his family, he's going to look down and say, hey, there's my pot. So to me, that was why that's my tombstone for my son.
Amazing. So, Greg, I want to talk for a second about the secret knock. It's right behind you, so people can see that term, but they may not know about the event because it's a secret. But of course, a lot of people do. I mean, it's been covered on all the major media. Can you tell us, and I'm curious, you've done interviews on the secret knock on that stage. You've had some of the world's top thought leaders. What is your biggest takeaway as something you've learned from somebody at the secret knock? I mean, does that put you on the spot or?
No, not at all. It usually just goes down to finding the story behind the story. So at Secret Knock, we don't bring in coaches and teachers and mentors. We just bring in the actual human being who's accomplished what everyone else is talking about. So if you want to start a nonprofit, here's the founder of Make-A-Wish. If you want to start a clothing line, here's the guy who started UGG boots. If you surround yourself with the people who've accomplished, it's different. So I usually bring in someone who's very controversial. So for example, I brought in President Vicente Fox from Mexico, who told us how George Bush tried to trick him to go to war with Iraq and to support him. And we had a private Skype with Edward Snowden while he's hiding in Russia to hear his side of the story. We just had Carol Baskin from the Tiger King come in and share her side of the story, saying she never even met Joe Exotic. And it was very interesting to actually peel that onion. And the person we have coming to this next Secret Knock is so controversial. I can't wait to see what comes from it.
Wow. I love that. And I love the fact that that you don't mind introducing people who maybe aren't getting their story shared properly. So
yeah, and they're not very well received at first, but they leave with usually 300 new fans, including myself, one way or the other, because you don't have to agree with them. I'm going to be very clear. You don't have to agree with it, but at least you get to hear it from a different side. I remember when I was talking to Edward Snowden, I said, man, it's got to be rough being so lonely and exiled. And he goes, no, my girlfriend moved here. I went, what? He goes, yeah, but you can't see your family. I go, oh, no, they're staying here right now. In fact, they got a place down the street. What? I'm going, yeah, but you dripped all that stuff to the media. He goes, no. He goes, I took all the information and I gave the hard drive to the media. What they dripped out was up to them. All I could do is just supply it. He goes, I never dripped one piece of information. I'm going, what? And so it's very interesting when you just hear a different side. Again, like, I'm not a supporter thing. It's just interesting when you hear a different version than normal just CNN.
So I saw that a good friend of mine, Kelly Cardenas, is it co-hosting this year? Is that, if it is that the first time there's been a co-host, or?
No, we've always had some form of a co-host. We just been mixing it up, looking for the like Cinderella perfect shoe. And I think we found it with Kelly. He's an awesome cat. So he's going to come on, and he's got such a unique look and mannerisms, and he brings such love and light, where I'm kind of a harsh, cut to the point person. He is a more of I'll say it, he knows how to soften the audience.
I love that. Yeah, I think he's an amazing fit. And I saw that and I was like, that, boom, that's it. That's the answer. I love it. So let me switch over to, and I know this is probably a question you've been asked a billion times, but I'm just curious your take on it. Definition of success. I mean, I'm sure you've been asked that many times, but you've had an opportunity, kind of like me with all my interviews, to hear a lot of different perspectives. So how's that shaped your view of success, and what does it really mean to you?
Yeah, there's no such thing. Again, I'll put it the same as legacy. There's no such thing as success. As long as you are working towards a successful outcome, you're therefore deemed successful. So all of us are successful. I mean, if you're looking to get your kid through college and you're paying those bills, you're pretty successful because you're doing something towards a worthy cause. So to me, I don't think there's a finish line. I mean, at the end of the day, you know how it is. Every time you write a book or you do a project or you have an outcome, you look for the next one, right? Because, you know, that gave you, an accomplishment, but not necessarily success. I was successful to finish it. I'll tell you that. And the true definition of success, I know this is going to sound crazy. It means to finish or to complete, or to fill a vacancy. So like, to succeed somebody is to succeed a vacant seat. So sometimes we use words, not the way they were originally intended, but they sound good on paper.
And now the main thing that drove this show is built around this question. I won't go into all the context, but it's called The Enlightened Passenger for a reason. I'm working on a book that'll be out at some point, a parable about an enlightened passenger, two people sitting on a plane, and one gives the other one life advice. So my question for you, Greg Reid, is if you were sitting next to a stranger on a plane, they lean over and say, hey, I need some advice. What do you got? What do you think you might tell that stranger on a plane?
Well, first of all, it's going to be the same answer that you and I did on our previous thing. Seek counsel, not opinion. Successful people seek counsel. Failures listen to opinion. What's the difference? Opinions based on ignorance, lack of knowledge, inexperience, like all your family friends who've never done what you're about to venture upon. Counsels based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. People have paved the way. So if you go to a family friend and say you're going to write a best-selling book, they might try to talk you out of it to protect you, to keep you safe so you don't look foolish, and they've never written a best-selling book. But if you go to Jack Canfield or Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, sold 1 billion copies, they're going to say, sit down, here's what you need to know, and give you counsel based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. If we would spend our activity only listening to counsel and ignoring people's opinion, that's the day your life will change.
I love that. And as we start winding down, I want to ask you, and I mean, again, this is a question you've probably been asked, so I feel sometimes bad asking a question you may have answered 20 times or 1,000, but I think it's an important question. you built an amazing catalog of work. And, you know, from everything from being involved in documentaries, movies, books, running the Secret Knock, a lot of things that very few people, if any, have done. And so I'd love to get your take on, is there an ingredient? Is there something that you would pass on to somebody? You have a book about a mentor teaching a mentee. So if you were teaching that mentee, like, what do you think you might tell them about how to build the life of their dreams, whether it looks like yours or not, just in general?
Yeah, and I'm gonna be very clear with you. I'm giving you completely different answers than if I was on a normal interview, only because you and I are friends now. So, I mean, I would normally give a fluffy answer to both of those other questions. Legacy is what you leave, and you do your very best to leave your mark on this planet and leave it a better place. I give that same cliche. I'd also say success is the feeling of accomplishment, of knowing you've done a job well done, all that stuff. I'm just giving you my truth answers, okay? So it kind of be very clear that, and plus it won't sound like every other knucklehead you have on this show. So that's kind of cool there. But to answer your question, yeah, mentorship, seek somebody who's already done what you want to do. That's all what mentors are. I mean, a mentor is an older, wise sage, someone who's just one step further than you. So they can say, hey, watch out for that hole. You know, I just passed over it, or I just stepped in it. And understand this, a mentor and a coach are two different things. A mentor is a non-paid, job, I guess we want to call it. And then a coach is a paid job. So for example, a mentor would say, you know what, you really have a great message. You should write a book and get that out to the world. Then you hire a coach to kick you in the ass, to write the chapters, to get it out, to do the thing. They're two different people. And I believe that we should have multiple coaches, multiple teachers in our life. For example, I got a great tennis coach. He works my backhand, but I'm not going to ask him about my public speaking. And I'm not going to ask my accountant about my writing, and I'm not going to talk to, right? So I find the people that are successful of already doing what I want to do, and then I ask them for the feedback. Funny story, when I want to become a best-selling author, people don't know this, but I'm dyslexic, can't spell, can't read, can't write. 140 books later, what the heck, right? But the moral is that I again sought counsel, not opinion. I went to the bookstore and I went to the best-selling section. I want to be a best-selling author. I asked those people, not the best written books and here for out thous, the best-selling books. And I said, what's the system? How do you do it? How do you get it out there? And I asked them for counsel. I applied it. Here we are today.
Well, so I love that. And out of all the interviews I've done, I think only one person has given me a similar answer to that. And it was Mark Victor Hansen. And he said, he went and he started asking. And I remember his wording, he said, without exception, to a person, I asked Wayne Dyer, Barbara D'Angelo, and he went through the list. And he said, I asked, how do you write a best-selling book? Period. Yeah. And he said that was a totally different question than, as you said, to go to somebody who's a best-selling writer or a writer in general who's never had a multiple-time bestseller. And he said the stuff he got from them, I mean, the counsel was you couldn't buy that stuff anywhere.
Yeah. And usually they'll give you the straight scoop answer. That's what I seek. That's why we do Secret Knock. Is I'm tired of all the fluff, the crap that's out there, the Instagram fake people. I'm looking for a credible source to give me that direct answer. And I remember when I was doing my first major feature film, Wishman, it was interesting. I didn't know the code to Hollywood. Now understand, be fair. Hollywood is acting, it's fake, it's facade. Go to Universal Studios, it's a beautiful building. On the back of it, there's nothing there, and that's a great representation of what Hollywood is. And yet I'm from San Diego, where it's normal, right? And so you had to learn the code. So finally I sat down after 5-6 years of being frustrated, and I sat down with this guy, Jules Hoimvitz, if I said it right. He's the founder of Showtime Television. And I was in his big old mansion. I go, what's the trick here? What's the hook? What's the thing? And he goes, oh, that's easy. Right away, if someone tells you yes, it's a no. A no is a no. A maybe, let's run it by everybody, is all you're looking for. And what happened is I lost 5-6 years of my life because I go to Hollywood, everyone goes, yeah, baby, we're going to make you a star. Yeah, we're going to get you $14 million. Yeah, we're going to do, and all those fast yeses were actually no's. And as soon as I look for it, so when I go up to Hollywood, after he told me this, I go, here's our movie. They go, yeah, sounds great. I go, thank you very much. And I took it as a no. A no, a no. And finally, when someone goes, hey, that sounds like it might work. In fact, I might know somebody who could enter. That's all I was looking for. And as soon as we started doing that, less than a year later, we made the film. And as you know, in 2019, made the shortlist for the Oscars. So go figure.
Wow. I mean, that's game changing. That's a workshop right there. Greg, I want to ask you one last official question. And then I just want to ask how people can learn more about your work and the Secret Knock. But the last sort of official question, when you talk about you seek counsel, it kind of makes me think maybe that's why you're such a fan of Think and Grow Rich, because that book was built on counsel, right? It was built on all this study and research and what have you. Is that safe to say? Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, and again, it's very interesting. I'll give you a little fun fact. I did another book called Wealth Made Easy, where for 3 years I interviewed people worth 100 million to $1 billion, and less than 10% of all those people ever even read Think and Grow Rich. Majority of them, though, in fact, all of them, I'd say 90% of those read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, and that was their Bible. And it was very interesting because Think and Grow Rich teaches you to get rich, but not wealthy. And they're two different mindsets. So, for example, if you're to be rich today, you'd have $1 million. But where I live, I could not even buy a house for that. So it's a different energy. It's a different mindset. So I think in today's world, people are now looking for more leverage, where before it was working hard, start at the bottom. It was these old success principles, and it's not relevant today. Now, the main thing about do what's right, speak your word, live your message, and things of this nature, that will always be time tested. However, if you look at it, there's been more billionaires and millionaires now than ever before. And the only difference is they use tools to leverage their success much quicker and exponential.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. And my takeaway is to grab the Atlas book. That's one of my takeaways from that.
Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Yeah, it's very interesting at the end of the day, but that's what they all, 90% of them, I'm talking about the wealthy people, not rich people, the wealthy people, that's what they use.
Wow. So Think and Grow Rich might be like the stepping stone for them to get to Atlas Shrugged.
Well, Think and Grow Rich is about mindset. I think people miss that. It's not about getting rich. It's about the mindset. You can't get rich until you have the positive mental PMA, positive mental attitude, and the mindset that you deserve it, and that success is coming your way, and you condition yourself. To me, Think and Grow Rich is a good example of a working out, doing a 5K, getting ready to do a marathon. Because what it does, if you went out and ran a marathon today, at least if I did, I could never do it. I'd die and get a heart attack. But if I slowly worked up to do a 5K, and then I could do a 5K faster, eventually I could do a marathon.
Wow. So Greg, Reid, last official question, actually even unofficial question, but it's just people have gotten to spend almost 20 minutes with you, hear about all the amazing things that you're doing, hear your ideas that may be different than other people, which I really totally respect and love. But if they want to explore that further, they want to find a way somehow to get into Secret Knock, if it's even possible, where would you send them to find out more?
Yeah, you just go to secretknock.co. We left the M off, but we're sold out for next year. We're already 6 months sold out. So the next one will be in 2024. So you can go fill out an application to come to that one, which is pretty darn cool. Isn't that crazy? So here's the way it works. It costs $3,000 to attend, and we don't tell people where it is, who will be there, nothing. You just have to sign up, and we tell you the city, state, date, so you can make your plane reservations. That's it. And then right before we leak the private secret location to our members, and by doing that, we get to attract these amazing human beings where no one else knows where they're at.
Well, so, and I think when you said it's amazing that's happening, that's why it's happening, right? It's exclusive. It's something that not everybody can get into. And of course, that's what we want. I mean, not everybody, but there's a certain group of people that say, I want in, like I want to be inside that room and hear from Snowden, where nobody else is hearing that perspective. So you're delivering something that has massive value. And I so appreciate you, my friend. Always
well,
around.
You got it. And anytime you want to come, let me know. I saved a couple of seats for my friends. I'd be glad to have you come.
Oh my gosh. I so appreciate that, my friend. I may reach out and make that happen. And especially my buddy Kelly Cardenas is going to be involved this year. So this will be the time to do it too.
Yeah, it's all the cool cats in one place. I couldn't imagine the interviews. See, again, let's just use this as a learning time. Okay.
Yeah.
It would be absolutely crazy not to jump on that. This is what blows my mind. And this is still surprising me to this day. When we did 3 Feet from Gold, so Napoleon Hill Foundation granted Sharon Lechter, who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad with Kiyosaki, and I the rights to go, update the teachings of Think and Grow Rich. Well, we went around the world and interviewed the greatest people that iconic that you could get a hold of. And we invited over 300 and some people, and no one showed up. Everyone had a reason. As I call it, a bad case of the one size. Once I get the kids out of the house, once I get the big break, and then afterwards, everyone said, now I want to meet all those people. And that's how I started Secret Knock. I go, well, you miss actually hanging out with Truett Cathy in his kitchen and making us a Chick-fil-A sandwich with his own hands. But now I'll tell you what, you can meet a couple of these other people in my living room. And that's what happened. But for example, if you're a podcaster or things of this nature, imagine being in a room with all these people and having access to them, where you'd have a whole year's worth of shows, potential thought leaders in one place at one time. I would do anything and everything possible to make that happen. So my job is done, and that's a wrap.
Well, you've sold me. I didn't have to be sold anyway, because I believed in the Secret Knock myself. You would, I mean, it was a long time ago, our last interview, you wouldn't remember this. But last year I couldn't go because we had a child being born. And I know that's a once but it was a big thing I had to focus on.
That's a big one. Well, and again, this is not necessarily a finger or at you. I'm saying in general, this is what blows my mind. It's kind of like, again, if you knew how many people of these podcasts and these things that we do, and it's like the perfect opportunity, yet for some reason, people always have this reasons of why not to do it. It was a few years ago. I'm gonna tell you this one last story. I know we're gonna go. I went, this is the craziest little thing. I had a bucket list of 80 things I wanted to do before I died. The craziest things. By the way, I'm very rarely, I don't know if I've ever even told this story, but I had 80 things on my bucket list that I had to do. And I wrote it when I was a teenager, and they were crazy, impossible things. Remember, I'm dyslexic, can't spell, can't read, write, but I was going to become this best-selling author. I was going to become this famous speaker. I was going to make major motion pictures. I was going to do all this stuff. I was a kid on the beach in sandals with flip-flops. And I just said, I'm going to do all these things. And I crossed every single one of those, from running with the bulls to climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, swimming with sharks, running Baja 500, carrying the torch for the Olympics. You name it, I did all of them except for one. And that was to get a PhD, because again, I never went to school. And I go, there's got to be a way to do it. And one time I was sitting at dinner with a very successful man, and I said, this is my dream. This is the only thing missing. He goes, you're not going to believe this, but in India, there's a school called D.Y. Patel. It's the biggest university. It's the same thing as like Harvard here. They have 37 campuses. He goes, last year, I got Ted Turner, the founder of CNN, an honorary PhD. He went out and did a commencement speech. He goes, I'll put your hat in the ring maybe next time. Yeah, effing maybe. A week later, that university calls my friend and says, hey, we need to give someone an honorary PhD. Who do you know? And they said to give it to me. And I said, well, no one's going to know me. I'm nothing. I go, but I really want this honorary PhD. So I asked my friend, Tonino Lamborghini. Everyone knows Lamborghini. So he flew from Italy. I flew from California. We met in India, and he and I did commencement speeches all throughout the country. And they gave us these honorary PhD. So technically now I'm a doctor. But the moral of that story is by having that leverage, by putting it out there, by surrounding yourself with people that are doing what you want to do, amazing things happen. But to close it all up, we were at this event, and it was the president of India, the biggest car manufacturer in the world, Tattoo, something like that. Tata, that's his name. Richard Branson, Lamborghini, all these other people. And I was sitting in the front VIP seats, 15, 20,000 people behind me, television cameras, all standing room only, people screaming. And I did a video because I invited my entire email list of 37,000 people to join me, and not one person came. And they could have been sitting right there, part of it, and not one person came. Everyone had, again, a bad case of the one size. You know what holds most people back is their big butt, not the one they sit on. They say, I'd go do that too. But the bottom line is this: we all have greatness inside us, just like Les Brown says. It's time for 2023 to dust that jacket off, step out into the spotlight, and share it with the world.
Mic drop, my friend. That is, that's amazing, because I see it all the time too. People say to me, you're so lucky to spend 20 minutes or an hour with so-and-so, sit in Les Brown's house in Atlanta and interview him. And I always reply back these days and say, if you only knew how much work went into becoming lucky. Because similar type thing, right? People are like, I wish I could do that. Well, You can't have the one size or the but. So
Well, exactly. How many times have we been sitting at the airport going, I hope my credit card goes through so I can get a taxi ride home? I mean, you do what you got to do. You know, like Les Brown says, you know, you got to suffer today and do what you'll do, willing to hard things today so you can have the life that you want for tomorrow. However, he says it more eloquently. But the bottom line, there's so much truth to that.